Welcome to another edition of I Am AAPC. Today we have Laidy Martinez, who I have met, I met on AAPC social media channels, and we've talked a lot. She's such a great ambassador to the industry and to the field of medical coding. Laidy, how are you?
I'm doing well, Alex. How about you?
I am great. Thanks so much for doing this. And you have such an amazing background and story. I think our members will be excited to hear it. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to this career field?
Okay, so first, let me tell you, my name is Lady Diana Martinez. I'm coming from a background that I was born and raised in Mexico, and then my parents didn't bring me until I was like 18 years old. So between 17, 18, I did went to school here, but I didn't finish high school. So that my whole entire life, I got pregnant really early age. So I had to support my kid, right? So I didn't have time to go back to school or even continue education. So it was not until I was pregnant from my second son that my partner at that time, he told me, like, you know what, you need to make a difference for yourself. You need to make something. I'm coming from a working as a delivery driver, which is totally different.
Yeah.
Carrying big boxes, work for this freight company. So it was something that it was not for a girl to do, right? So he's like, you are very smart. Just go for something that it can just change your life. And then I kind of listened to that advice, and then I did, and I enrolled into a medical billing and coding trade school. And then from there, I started as in a family practice. I was there for like about between 8 to 10 years. I learned everything. And then I remember a couple of my coworkers used to tell me, like, this doctor is taking advantage of you because all the work that you do. And then I remember I told them, like, you know what? She probably is taking advantage of me unto some extent, because the moment that I walk out or I find out something else, I'm taking that knowledge with me. And it
Yeah.
happened. And then so yeah, that's how I started it.
I want to back up a little bit. What led you to this field? Did you have someone who worked in the field tell you about it?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yes. It was my sister-in-law who's married to my brother, my older brother. She was already doing billing, and then I used to admire that. She was working in an office, so I was like 20. I used to see her. She started when she was in high school, where her and I were almost the same age. So I see her working in offices, and then when I was doing deliveries, I always see delivery packages to offices, like medical offices, and I always see people. I was like, that one day I wanted to do those kind of things too, answering phones. But sometimes, and I remember I said this on social hour, I always kind of put my brain that, oh, my English is not so good. Oh, my English is not so good. I won't be able to do that. So I
Yeah.
always had that, and I maybe it wasn't even that. It was just myself telling me that, always telling me like, no, you won't be able to do it because of this. So, but I always saw my sister-in-law doing that, and I was like, oh my God, I wish I could do that. So when I my partner told me you need to do something different, I was like, well, maybe I can look into this. She's already doing it, and I asked her, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, you do this. You only file claims, blah blah blah." She was only submitting claims, so I was like, "Ah, that sounds interesting. So let me just do that." And that's
Yeah.
the reason why I got
Oh,
into it.
okay. All right. That's interesting. And the first position, was it as a medical coder?
It was no, as a matter of fact, it was a medical biller. So I didn't know anything about coding. It was, because normally the providers that you work in a family practice, they always give you as a super bill. So you always have the codes. And back then was the ICD-9. So you had the codes, the diagnosis code, and the CPT codes. It was like a shit sheet that the doctor would just mark it, and I would just have to enter data entry. So it was not back until I was at 2017 when a medical coder came in to train our provider, our family practice provider, because they were, for the risk adjustment. So when she started introducing and talking to that provider, I was so fascinated. I remember I was looking at her and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much interesting. I really want to do this. So I think I fell in love with coding. And then I started looking into I asked her, how do you become a coder? What is it that you need to do? And I asked so many questions. She was like, oh my goodness. She even said it to me. It's like, you really want to get yourself into it. I was like, I really want to do this. I think I'm already doing everything in billing. I know everything that ins and outs, but I think this is my next challenge. And from there, I start working and getting into my CPC, and then 2 years later, I become certified.
Was the course that you took at your college a medical billing course, or was it a billing and coding course?
It was a combination of the two, but it was more focusing on billing. It was medical billing and coding, practice management. So it will also focus on the practice management and everything that it relates to the practices.
Okay. And that's a common question. The question of, should I be a coder or biller first? What do you recommend? Because billing worked out for you and led you to coding. What would you say to someone who's just stepping into this field?
Well, it depends what really you really want to do. To me, and based on my experience, I will say when you understand billing and you transition from billing to coding, it is easier. It is easier because now you understand what happens behind it, and then what happens after something has been coded, right? So to me, it's easy to understand. And whenever I get work on denials that they are need to be reviewed in the coding department, I already know what the payers are saying. I don't spend a lot of time reviewing what did the claim says, or what was the denial reason. So because of my background, you normally see billing to transition to coding. You don't see coding transition to billing. I don't see it at all. I don't see more,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean that cannot happen. It's just that it's more common for a biller to transition to coder.
What do you think the job outlook is like for a biller versus a coder? It would be, do you think there are more opportunities out of the gate for a biller or a coder?
I think there are more opportunities as a biller because it's less complex. I think coding jobs, because it's not that there's no more responsibility, but I think it's because you have to do more research, and it's more in complexity. It's more because there's so many things that are key points that they're taking place to when you are a coder. So you have to comply with regulations, pay guidelines, coding guidelines, and you need to keep yourself up to date. And then when it comes to billing, pretty much you have to really understand just the payer guidelines, making sure that you are up to with those payer guidelines, but not as much as coding, because we constantly have changes and we have to keep up with those changes.
It sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that there are more opportunities for a coder in growth and different options down the road.
I do, I believe it. And then you can branch out, like you can go into uttering. Like I got passionate about uttering now that I understand coding more. I really like the uttering aspect, and then thinking like an utterer. And then whenever time I review something, I'm thinking about, okay, this is going to stand out. My mind already kind of makes a connection, and then I'm always looking into things that they're going to help me or protect my practice, protect my organization, to being compliant too. So I think there's more options as a coder that you can branch out and do other things and improve yourself.
So are you a full-time auditor now?
I'm a supervisor. I'm
Okay.
currently the coding supervisor for the Profi department at this organization. So yeah, but I do recently we are going to start doing audits to our coders just to kind of see if there's opportunities to learn, and that's something that I'm gonna start doing. So I really like it that I'm gonna be doing that.
Okay, awesome. And I want to dig into that career path a little bit more, but first, you talked about the lack of confidence that you had because of your accent, and English is not your native language. We've talked about this. What gave you the confidence that you needed? And yeah, how did you overcome that?
Well, I think I'm constantly trying to overcome it every day when I get up in the morning. I was like, okay, what my challenge am I going to face today? So I think it's always something, right? But I think I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, I moved to um, Kansas because my family lives in Kansas, my brother and my siblings. So I moved to Kansas, and I was just a builder. I was only had like a few years of experience. And I think that was the moment that I start getting a little bit more confident, not as much as I am now. But when I moved, I applied for a billing company, a billing group for GI. Little that I know that I was going to become very passionate about GI. So I started working for this group. I got the interview process. I applied for the company. They called me to come for an interview. And this was in Independence, Missouri. So, there's not a lot of Latinos in Missouri or even Kansas. I mean, Kansas maybe, but not Missouri, right?
Yeah.
But you can't believe it. When I went to that interview, I was the only Hispanic girl among all white people.
Wow.
I feel like I got out, I called my sister-in-law and I tell her, Carla, I am not staying here. There's no way they're gonna hire me. She's like, why? I was like, there's only American people. How am I supposed to put that with the English that I have? And it's like, no way they're gonna call me. And and she told me, you know what, lady, you know what you know, and you show them what you know. You're pretty good at what you're doing because you've been doing this for quite a few years already. Show them what you know. They will see it. And I was like, okay, I guess. So I stayed. And then the interview went well, everything was good. When I had to drive like an hour, long story short, when I got home, they called me for a second interview. That was the second
Wow.
interview with me. I went there the next day. They tell me that, oh, we're still three more people. I think they were in the run. And then they'll say, if we make a decision, we'll call you, whatever. I went home again. They called me again and says, you need to come back tomorrow for another interview with the manager. I was like, okay, I go there. I think they had it to do like 3 or 4 interviews. That was crazy. So I got home the next day too, and they okay, you have to come back because a final interview with the CEO. So I make it, and yes, I got the job. So
Awesome.
I think at that moment, I kind of feel like, okay, if I put myself into this and if I really do my job and I continue to do my hard work, do my research, do what am I supposed to be doing for my job? um I think I can do this. I know why don't I, I'm not trusting myself. And then of course I have other people, like there's so many mentors that I have throughout these years, great connect mentors, and I connected with so many people that honestly, Alex, I feel like they have believed in me more than I believe in myself. They have pushed me and they have given me opportunities. And then when you have all these people that kind of welcomes you and just sees your authenticity, I think that changes everything. And you're like, okay, so if people really believe me, there might be something that I'm doing right, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was just a combination of everything, on my hard work, and then I'm being determined, and I'm making all this just to improve. It's not just for myself. It is the reason why I do it is because I have 3 beautiful kids that they depend on me, and I want to give the best to them.
Awesome. And this career path has done that for you.
It has. AAPC has opened. I will tell you, maybe I was already kind of successful in billing, but I feel that since I become a certified coder, it had opened doors. And then and I'm a person that like to pay it forward, right? So I have been sharing knowledge. It's not good, or you don't do anything good if you just keep it to yourself. I have that mentality. If you're able to have the opportunity to help others, do it, because those are blessings that they will come back to you. And then it's time to pay it forward too, helping others. I see a lot of coders that are new and they don't have a resource or way. How do I start this? I always give them guidance, and I think that it's another thing that I'm very passionate about.
There's probably someone watching right now, watching this interview, who is not a native English speaker, maybe an immigrant like yourself, who feels that lack of confidence that you once did. What do you have to say to that person watching?
I would tell that continue fighting, continue doing what you're doing. Don't give up. Don't throw the towel and say this is not for me. It is for you, because the only thing that it's the only person that is like making or blocking you to do it is yourself. It is your own self. Sometimes we are our worst enemies, right? So we listen to that back noise, or like I always say, there's always background noise. Background noise is always going to be like people telling you, no, you won't be able to do this. This is not going to happen. This is not for you. You won't be able to achieve this. You won't be able to do this. Guess what? That's all background noise. Focus Stay focused and you will do it. Hard work pays off, Alex, but it takes time. And like I always tell people, like I said, there's an old saying, Rome wasn't built in one day, but you have to keep trying. You have to keep trying. If you don't try and you give up, it's not gonna happen. But I have a soccer player that I always tell him, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. It's the same thing. So I'm a very motivational person that I feel like, if you don't motivate yourself, no one is gonna come and do it for you. You
Yeah.
have to keep on believing in yourself.
It's I keep going back in my mind as you share your story, just how important it was for you to have cheerleaders, though.
Yeah.
You're right. You had a support network of friends, people you met online in the coding world, people you met in person, and they help you believe in yourself.
Yeah, there's the magical power of networking. I think sometimes people are you have to get out of your shell, right? I was kind of like not making connections, and then the moment that I start getting out of my shell, the first person that kind of say it is our dear friend Christine Ho, right? I met her like 2, 3 years ago, and then she even told me last year on Helcon, you are nothing what I met, that girl that I met 2 years ago. You had changed so much. And then, and I'll say, you know what? I think when you have the desire to improve yourself, to get better, and then have a purpose, it's basically understanding and knowing your why. Why you're doing the things that you're doing, and if this means or has any meaning to you, then you start making a difference. Not just on yourself, but for others.
I love it. What was because the CPC exam's notoriously difficult and that is for a reason, to prove someone's ready to work in the field. What was the most difficult section of your CPC studies?
I think it was the case studies. And when I took that exam, it was 150 questions, 5 hours and 40 minutes. So it was more questions. So there were more cases. So I remember back, if I'm going backtrack, it was 2019 when I was studying for it. I took it on October 19. I remember exactly when I passed my exam. So I start doing a strategy about 3 months before how I was going to tackle this exam because it was hard. So I was doing it online with the Blackboard. I was taking all the quizzes, and I did use the practice exam, the practice test that AAPC offers. I think those are great tools and resources that AAPC has that I strongly encourage. If you had the opportunity, you're still studying for it, take those 3 exams because they will help you. And not only they help you on some of the questions are very similar, but time management. I think time management is the key. You have to really try to tackle questions less than 2 minutes. Keep it at 2 minutes, the minimum, so or the maximum. So that way, if the easy questions they come, you kind of compensate the time. That's what I always say. Compensate the time with the ones that are easy, maybe terminology, concepts like that. You compensate the time. So if in case there's a case, you save the time for the ones that are hard, and then
You're
you
banking time for those cases.
yes. So you compensate the time. So I do always say practice at least. Don't practice the last week. I mean, the last week should be just more for relaxing, reviewing, making sure that you have everything on place, your books. I know we don't have it anymore in person, but always want to double check you prepare whatever. If you're gonna take it in a testing center, making sure you have everything like a backpack or everything. Put it before the day. You don't have to be running the day or you be running late. Just prepare everything the day before, and don't overkill yourself the day before. Whatever you have learned, you already learned it throughout your time with the course. You will know it. It's just sometimes it's our nerves kick in, but relax and then take a deep breath when you're taking your exam. And people can able to be successful, but it's just know your strategy and then making sure you know the guidelines. That is crucial.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other credentials beyond the CPC?
Yes, I do. I have the billing credential and I have the auditor credential, the CPMA, and I have a specialty credentials that are the general surgery, credential and GI, gastroenterology, and also have the ambulatory surgical center credential.
So in a matter of 5 years or so, that's, I'm doing the math in my head. That's about a new credential every year, give or take. Is that right?
Yes, I took the CPC at the end of 2019. When the COVID hit, I had to take the GI in the ambulatory surgical center. And then I put a pause on it. And then a year later, I took the general surgery. And I was supposed to take I took the CPMA, but it was a hard exam. That one took me, it was one of the hardest one that I had to take. But I was not thinking about getting the CPB. But like I said, I have a friend that she's like, just go for it. You know what you're doing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't study on that one. Because I have so many years of billing experience. So I just took the challenge and I passed it. So
Oh, nice. You make it look so easy.
it's not that easy. I don't want to make it easy. That, like you're saying, the reason why you credential because you want to they test your knowledge, and I think they don't test really like what you learn, but if you know how to look in the books for the guidelines, I think that's what it basically is. That you understand the guidelines, you understand where you can find that information, and I think that's basically it.
Yeah, for all of the exams, right? It's not, you're not going to memorize those books. They're like old phone books, just huge books. You got 3 of them, and you have to just know where to search.
Yeah, you just need to know, and there's some concepts that you probably do have to, depending on the type of credential you're looking for. You know, there's some billing has a little things that you might have to know, make notations because it's not in the books. It's more, and then when it comes to billing, it's more payer's perspective. You know, from the payer's policies, understanding how to read those policies is basically what it is. But other than that, for the books, it's basically understanding if they're parentheticals, what do they mean? What is this conventions know for ICD-10? What do the conventions mean? And in those conventions, there are guidelines. How do you apply those guidelines to this? You know, like exclude 1 or exclude 2 notes, things like that, that you kind of really have to understand, but it's not, you don't have to memorize it. You just need to know where to find that information.
Yes, yes. Let's jump back into your career. So this first job at a family practice office, am I remembering right? And you were a biller?
I was a biller, receptionist, medical assistant. I didn't do vitals, but I did everything. Referral coordinator, everything.
Take us on the journey from that starting point with your career, your first career in healthcare as a biller at a family practice office to where you are now a supervisor.
Yeah, so I started that in 2011, I think, yes, 2011. And then as a family practice, then 8 years later, I started being as a billing. I applied for a GI office and I was a biller. I originally was just a biller, but I was taking over there was no department. It was just billing for the provider, one doctor. But then he started getting bigger. The practice started getting bigger. He started adding more providers. So then I become the billing manager because now there was a department. So I had like 3 billers under mine working for my department. So I was the billing manager for that office. But then he added, I learned to bill for ambulatory surgical center because he had an ambulatory surgery center that he owned. So I learned everything, like how to build a practice, everything. I even learned contracting. I didn't know how to do contracts, and I didn't know how to do contracting, which was very interesting. So then I was laid off on that 3 years. I was there for 3 years, and I was laid off because I think because of COVID, the practice was not doing that well. And then on 2022, was it 2020? No, 2021. Then I got hired as a production coder, profit coder in a hospital, for a children's hospital in Orange County. And then I was always looking for something. I was not expecting to get this job as a supervisor 6 months ago, but like I mentioned it before, I got the opportunity because my previous president for my chapter, she reached out to me and asked me, hey, I had this position open. I'm hoping that you wanted to apply for it. And I was like, wait a minute, is she telling me that she wants me to? So yeah, I applied and I got the job. So I'm very happy. That one of the things that I enjoy most in this job is that I'm able to help other coders and guide them. That's the number one thing that I love about it.
That's great. That's so cool. Thinking about your, like, here you are, um, a supervisor because of a networking opportunity. And we talk about that a lot because, we hear from new coders who are struggling to get that first position. And we say network at your local chapter meetings and network online with other coders, and build those relationships because they could lead to that first job or that next position that you never expected.
Yes, I think networking, but most important is to connect with your local chapter, understanding who are your officers, what do they do, and then and pretty much just connect with them. When I started was when 2019. I remember that I reached out to the president, and at that time I was just a member. I was not credentialed, not certified, and I remember I saw it. So I'm the type of person that does a lot of research before contacting people. So I researched and I said, okay, can I attend meetings? And I told her, I know I'm supposed to only attend 3 meetings, and she's like, yeah, you're welcome to attend. So at that time, it was still in person. So I remember I reached out to her in May of 2019, and I attend May, June, and July. And I remember on August, I was hiding. I stayed in the back because I didn't want her to see me. It's like, she said only 3 meetings that I'm supposed to attend. So I didn't want her to see me. And then she would just make a comment on the second meeting that I attend. She's like, you don't have to be hiding. I know I said 3 meetings, but I love that you want to participate. You're welcome to come. You're a member, because I was not certified, but I was still a member. And she's like, oh, I just thought it was only applied to people that are certified. She's like, no, 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 no. You're a member. You have you are still, even you're a student, but you're a member. So don't worry. And I wouldn't even say no, because I see that you're very motivated. So I really like the way she was so professional. I kind of like, I really admire the way her demeanor and everything. So I say, you know what? One day I'm going to be an officer. And I make that to I expressed that to her, and I told her, one day at that time I was not feeling confident. I was so new to it. And then she reached out to me on 2020, and she's like, would you be interested? And I said, look, I just got a new job. This is something so new to me. I don't think I can do that. Like, maybe how do we revisit this next year? And then next year, she told me, you know what, I'm really looking for officers. Would you be willing to step in? And I was like, okay, let's do it. Okay. So I was a secretary. So yeah, that's how I started it. But I honestly, I enjoy being an officer. I think it is very rewarded. Like, if you help others contribute, and then bringing the education portion is the things that I enjoy the most.
That's awesome. Well, just I know it can be tough to give up your time because you have a family that needs you as well. But I guess this is professional development and helping you move forward in your career. Yet, even it sounds like more importantly is helping other coders.
Yes, I do make a balance. I think it's important to have a balance between your work, your family, and then even the things that extracurricular. My kids do a lot of extracurriculum activities. Like I mentioned, I have two soccer players. So sometimes I'm juggling when they're practicing. I'm in meetings, and then I'm listening on my phone. So I kind of make a balance. But I think everything is important, and you kind of balance it out. But it's really helping me to not just improve. And like I said, there's a lot of things that I apply on my personal life and my professional life. But it's really fascinating. I really love it, what I do.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing your professional story and sharing a little bit about your family. I'm curious, Laidy, what do you do to wind down when you obviously we've talked a lot about your family now, and how do you escape the work and recharge yourself?
I think one of the things that, okay, I enjoy the most being with my kids. And then spending time with my kids is the thing that I feel like when I get recharged, I go to my happy place. And people always says you go to your happy place, right? So my happy place is where my kids are. That's where I'm happy. And then I think when I see them and then I see them that they're having or excelling, my son playing soccer, doing something good, or I see that they're performing good, I said, okay, everything that I've done or everything that I have gone through, all the sacrifices, all the things, it's all worth it because to me, that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then, in the run, I'm always helping others, but I think most important to me is seeing my kids successful, and that's what means everything to me.
I love it. Thanks so much for sharing that. Lady, as you said that, I thought, I mean, what we've talked about has been a lot of the happy times, happy moments. We talked some of the fear of language barriers and feeling insecure. I think we all feel like that in different moments in times of our lives. But were there, prior to that career change from delivery woman to healthcare professional, were there times when you questioned, what is my path? How am I going to do this? How am I going to raise these kids?
Oh my God. If I go back in time, Alex, to when I'm coming from a background, okay, like I said, my dad had this vision, and then he always wanted me to go to school. And when I was in Mexico, I was in high school in Mexico. So I was already planning to do something for myself, like going to university. I was very good at school. So my dad kind of, when I didn't finish high school here, he kind of like, oh my God, I left my dad down. I always felt that way. So because he had a vision and he brought us to the USA to have a better opportunities. And then here I find myself, and there's nothing wrong by having or working on labor jobs because you're doing everything, whatever you can at that time, right? But I feel like, sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but sometimes we tend to forget the things that they're important to us. And to me was education. Education has always been such a strong thing for me that I honestly feel like the only way you can get better is by getting yourself educated. That doesn't mean you have to go to universities. However, I am planning to go to university. But it doesn't mean, as long as little like certification credentials can open doors for you. And I think it's great that AAPC has this pad because there's so many people that pivot from different type of industries and they find themselves a career on this, on doing coding or authoring or compliance, anything like that. So it was hard. Back to what you asked me, if I go back and think about, did I see myself doing this when I was maybe 20 years ago, doing this, what I'm doing now? No, I didn't think. I think people would have tell me, you're going to be doing this, or you're going to be working for this hospital doing this. I would say, you kidding me? There's no way. How am I supposed to be hired when my English is not even that good? And then
Oh,
I think it's just the dedication. And remember when I said on the social hour, I feel like, in order to cook something, a recipe that it has like the mole, right? The recipe that it has so many ingredients,
mhm.
you won't be able to have the mole, the perfect mole that you want, like the original one, until you make it multiple times. Like the grandma recipe that you want, and it's all like you always go back to your roots, right? And then you want to have something that maybe your grandma made, like a special recipe. You won't be able to recreate that until maybe a couple years later when you do it multiple times, multiple times. So in order for you to be successful, I do think that you have to fall many times, but you have to fall and get up and learn from that and then come back and do it again, come back and do it again, and then never giving up. So it has determination, perseverance, dedication, hard work. It all combined together. And then now you find yourself here doing this and you're like, okay, this rough path, it has worth a try.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. What an inspiration. And I'm sure that someone watching, just another person will be touched by your story, Lady.
I
And
hope so, Alex, because that's the main thing that I wanted to share. Hey, I'm gonna tell you a story. When I become a CPC, I did say to myself one day, I am AAPC one day. I wrote that. Remember a few years ago, I think it was like a year ago that I was published on the AAPC magazine, right? as a I am AAPC. I had that article for 3 years on my computer. 3 years that I wrote it when I first became CPC on 2019, and I said I'm gonna send it over, and I forgot to send it until 3 years later.
I love it. And this it just shows that a little bit of confidence builds and builds and builds, and look where you're at now, and who knows where you'll be in the future.
Yes, I agree.
Lady, you've mentioned the AAPC social hour that we had you on a few times. I just want our viewers to know that it was the March 13th, 2024 broadcast. You can find that on the AAPC YouTube channel. But Lady, thanks so much for sharing your story. We appreciate you and look forward to watching your career take off even further.
Oh, thank you so much, Alice, for having me. I hope you guys enjoy it. And then, yeah, always look out for Alice on Social Hour or on I Am AAPC.
Thanks, Lady.
You're welcome.